Hey everybody, welcome to another video. I'm going to talk about something that people may or may not remember, and this specifically you're going to have to be collecting comics in, say, the years between like 88 and 95. And more specifically, collecting DC comics. I thought about this. I'm talking about the DC Direct Currents, if you remember what those are. I'll show you them because I found them all in CBR form. But I was thinking about them. I was in the shower, and a good idea, by the way, if you got to do something and you need to be creative and you got to think of something, whether you're working on whatever, go take a hot shower. For some reason, the hot water and the blood vessels and the science and the science does something behind that, and sometimes like an idea just pops in your head. And it wasn't exactly that today, but one thing I did think about was collecting comics in that time period, 88 to 95. Now remember, I kind of got off of American comics about 93. But collecting comics in that time period, and at my age that I was, age definitely has is a major factor in your perception of whether or not comics in that time period or comics today were good. And let me explain. There's always a lot of debate. People are always talking, oh, and back in my day, and I'm totally guilty of that. I say that a lot. I'm always old man shouting at the clouds, and I say back in my day. But I gotta say that I am not 100% sure that's totally true. Now, yes, the comics today are definitely different. Some people think they're superior in the creation of them, meaning the art, the printing, the computer color. There's that regard. People think that the artists are much better caliber. Some people think that the old school artists are better. It's always a debate who's the better storyteller. And when it comes to writing, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. You also got to think about your age. I'm 50, right? And so when I'm that time period I'm talking about, the 88 to, let's just say 93, although the DC Direct School 95. But I was a different person. I was a teenager. I was in high school. I thought differently. My peers, other teenagers, thought differently. Everybody, it was a totally different world back then. It was all pre-internet, for one thing. It was all pre a lot of things. So today, the way, you got to think, if you're a high school student today and you do collect comics, which, here's a weird thing to think about. When I was in high school, I was in a minority of kids who collected and read comic books, right? I would say there's probably, I could count on my hand, and one hand, maybe two hands, the amount of kids in my high school that actually weekly collect comic books and read them, and you could talk and you'd see them at the bookstore or whatever, or you'd see them at the comic book shop. And that's going from like being a freshman, and there's seniors, all the way up to being a senior, and then there's freshmen. So I gotta say that I could think of about 10 people. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't more, but that I'm aware of. I could think of about 10 people that collected comic books out of a graduating class of, I don't even know what our graduating class was, 300 people-ish? Maybe not that much. Probably, well, I don't know. No, it could have been 300. Really? It was 300 kids? I don't think that was true. For some reason that number pops in my head. But regardless, well over 100. Then you got to think 4 grades, right? So let's just say there was 500 kids. The population of my Rochester high school was 500 kids, right? I can think of 10. And you also got to think of being a freshman and all the upperclassmen that eventually graduate and leave, and then all these new. So you can double that, really. I could think of 10. And because it wasn't in vogue, it wasn't a, how do I say this? It wasn't mainstream. It wasn't. It was pretty obscure hobby to get into. People were aware of it, but it really wasn't a big thing. And you got to think, now fast forward to today, right? Now obviously the comic book numbers of people buying it across the board are way down from what they were in this time period. But if you go into a high school today, any high school across the United States, I guess even take the UK or whatever, Canada, count, and you took a survey of every kid in the class, every kid in the school. Let's say there's 500 kids in the school, similar to my school, and you were to ask them, do you collect comics weekly or monthly? Do you read them? You know, that whole thing. Are you into comic books? And what the hell was that noise? Anyways, if you surveyed all of the 500 kids in a given high school, I bet you 20 or 10 to 20 people might come forward and say, yeah, I collect comics on a weekly, monthly basis. Hey, I'm collecting all the current whatever, Marvel, DC. I bet you it's about the same. Now, it's probably more than that, just like it was probably more of that when I went to school, but I'm just going to say it's probably around the same. So I would say that the obscurity of collecting comic books, actual paper comic books, going to the comic book shop and buying comic books today for a teenager is about as rare as it was then. Because if you go to a comic book convention, right, like Great Lakes Comic Con, which just passed, Motor City Comic Con, I mean, a lot of these, I guess Motor City's not a good idea, San Diego's not a good barometer, because a lot of people are there for other things besides comic books. But if you go to an actual comic book convention, where it's predominantly people are there to buy and sell comic books, which they're rare, but there's a lot of KFC, the Knights of Columbus halls. Apparently the Middle Belt one down there in Livonia is still going on, because I watched a woman at the Great Lakes Crossing on YouTube talking in an interview to somebody, and he was asking how many comic book conventions are there around here in a given year, and she kind of rattled off a bunch of Comic Cons, and there's more than I thought. And she mentioned the Extravacons still going on at the Knights of Columbus Hall in Livonia. So that's still going on, which was the same Extravagant one in Royal Oak Legion Hall, which I don't think she mentioned. And if you go to those conventions, you'll probably, if you took a head count, like if you went to 1988 and took a head count of the Extravacon at the Royal, or same thing at the Livonia, actually it was at the American Legion Hall then. They had moved it to the Knights of Columbus, which, by the way, I didn't realize, but my record convention, the one that's literally right around the block from my apartment, they've moved it out to River Road, which is the road going out to the Zilwaukee Bridge, to their Knights of Columbus. So that's just odd that came up. But anyways, so if you were to take that, I'm going somewhere with this. If you were to take a head count in 1988 Livonia Knights of Columbus Hall, let's say go today, take a head count Knights of Columbus Hall, and take a count of how many dealers there are there, I bet you it's about the same, roughly. You know, I bet you it's about the same. I bet you, I mean, if you added up all the you know, the admissions to get in, you know, somebody at the front was counting up everybody, how many, to do a head count, everybody who's paid that day to go in. I bet you it's about the same as it was in 1988. And it's weird to think about, though, too. So when people say today, oh, comics are dying, or comic industry is, you know, everybody's gone on, everybody's online and blah, 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 I don't think it's changed much since the 80s. The thing is, the 90s happened. Like I said, that speculator boom, and then, of course, the MCU happened. And the X-Men cartoon, too. That happened, and the Spider-Man cartoon. And it, obviously, numbers went up. You know, X-Men #1 or X-Force #1 selling 9 million copies, 8 million copies. I mean, that's insane. Definitely, Death of Superman, Death in the Family with Robin died. You get this huge spike, right? And then, of course, it kind of just came back down to where we are today. I would say that the comic book industry probably doesn't, obviously it's not printing and selling as many books as they did then, But that's not true, because, and as we'll see, if you look at a given month in comic books, you're like, okay, well, they did 45 comic books, DC comic books, in the month of February 1988, which is hypothetical. I've got the information there, but let's just say that. And they sold, whatever. They sold, at 75 cents to $1 a piece, they sold 300,000 copies, right? Now you got to count out how many crossovers, how many limited series is all that stuff that goes on today, both Marvel and DC. I bet you it's more like 300 comic books a month. Maybe that's a little crazy, but let's say 200 comic books a month are being sold at $4 a piece, and and then times that by average 50,000 comics, right? You see what I'm saying? I still think they sold more then, sure, but it's not. If you got to really look at the numbers of really what's going on, and again, obviously with the direct market wasn't as big of a thing back then. It became a huge thing, and you also got to remember stuff like Previews magazine, previews from Diamond Comics distributors, that wasn't around yet. That didn't come out till like the 90s. So, and I don't think Marvel had a version of what I'm talking about. I'm going to go to it here in just a minute. Marvel today has, I keep showing you these, and this essentially is a fancier, thicker, bigger, and they're still free, but this is a fancier way of doing the exact same thing that DC did with their DC Direct. DC's just there wasn't as much information, because there didn't need to be. It was only like 4 pages or 5. I think it might have been 2 stapled pages total. So you get and cover to cover 8 pages. 8 pages. But it's all the same information. They give you a little blurb on the comics, not as much of a blurb, and not as much art, as this. And then of course in the back they give you the ship dates and no price. Oh no, they do have prices. The prices are on the individual things. So pricing is a good reason. I'll tell you about that too as well. So let's click over and go to my folder here of these. Now I'm going to pull them up. First of all, my question to people is, does anybody remember these? They were full color. They always had them at the bookstores. Like I said, I remember a lot of times going up to Winchester Mall from the trailer park in Rochester Hills and going to Fireside Books, and they had a stack of those by the comics, or they were at the register, I can't remember, but me and my friend from Ruther, we would go and we would pick those up, and I used to grab a couple of them just because they're free, and throw them in my bag. And so I'd always have these on hand, because this would have been 88, so things are starting to gear up for the Michael Keaton Batman to come out. And this is after Dark Knight. This is when DC started to kind of come alive in the beginning of the modern age. This is when most of us started collecting DC stuff. I still didn't. I guess I did collect a lot of it now that I think back, because there was a lot of it actually coming out. But this specifically would be books. As you can see, they're books that ship from February 9th to March 8th. The books shipping from February to March. So this is a whole month. I always thought they were weekly, but now they're monthly. And it would talk about usually like the cover was usually whatever the most popular book was that was coming out at the time, and then, like I said, they'd give a little blurb for it. Now, this is pre-internet, so you couldn't just go online and look up and see what comics are coming out. This is really the only way to know, was this little flyer that you would get. Sometimes in the promotional posters that some of the places would put up on their walls or out in the window. Otherwise, you really didn't know what was coming out. And like I said, a lot of our comics were purchased, by riding our bike up to Winchester Mall. Sometimes my buddy would come over. He lived a little farther out, He would come over, ride his bike to my house. Sometimes my sister, when she was home from college, she'd drop us off there and then come pick us up. Sometimes we just walk. I mean, it wasn't really that. Winter would kind of suck. I mean, I remember riding. Oh, I walked up there and rode my bike in the winter a lot. But I mean, you could walk it too to the trailer park. And we'd go up there and we'd look for the comic books and we'd grab one of these. And we probably already had one prior to it, so we kind of knew what was coming out. And you knew what should be on the rack when you got there. Yeah, let's just look at one of these. So let's just take this. I'm not going to take this one. I'm going to take the... I don't remember this one. I remember this one pretty vividly. This is the book shipping. This would have been 1988 book shipping from June to basically the month of June. And that would have been 88 June. We just got out of ninth grade. So this is the June this is basically school just ended for our freshman year at Rochester High School, and that's what this would have been. And I remember that. I mean, I remember that time period pretty vividly. So here's what they look like on us. Oh, I got that set on double page, but it's okay. We'll look at a double page here. So, like I said, Hawk and Dove. That was that for the Rob Liefeld, notorious Rob Liefeld comic that was out. And I remember, I got to get that. That looks really good. I like this Hawk and Dove. And my buddy from, what do you call it? My Ruther friend, which is now a high school friend. He was collecting Animal Man. I remember that. He was real big into Animal Man. I didn't really get too much into Animal Man. As you can see, you got New Guardians there, Starman, Haywire. I remember that Haywire comic that came out. I don't know if you remember. So, like I said, they would give you this kind of blurb thing, black and white. So I thought some of these were full color. I know the front was, but yeah. See, well, I remember some of them. I can't remember exactly. They're all color. We'll find out. We'll go through a few of these and look at them. But and then, of course, book shipping June 7th, and would give you the the week. So that would have been on a Wednesday, and then you would get Action Comics. It would give you actually the comic just like it does in these, gives you a little blurb, and then it would give you. I think they started putting the price in these. I don't see the price here, but I'm pretty sure they started putting the price in these because you kind of wanted to know how much money you needed. And here's the thing. And this is a big thing. And this, I don't know if anybody thinks about this when it comes to comics, and I don't know if anybody did this. I'm assuming they did. But if you got to think, 1988, right? The average comic book, let's just say DC comic, was 75 cents or $1. Maybe like Haywire was $1.50, right? The prestige books. Like She-Hulk, Sensational She-Hulk was $1.50 book. Excalibur was $1.50 book, but most of them were 75 cents. I don't think they raised them to $1 until 89 or 90 for like the regular comics. So 75 cents for a comic book. First of all, my dad, like a lot of people's dads, always had $100 of change in his pocket at any given moment, right? And he always kept the quarters, and he'd always stack the quarters up. Kind of like I keep my quarters now for laundry, and then I give the nickels and dimes to my son. He did the same thing. He would empty this just mound of change out of his pocket, and just sort out all the quarters, right? And he'd keep the quarters, he'd roll the quarters, and he'd take the rest of the nickels and dimes and pennies and just give them to me. So I would, when he cleaned out his pockets every weekend when I went over there, I probably made $3 or $4 in nickels and dimes and pennies, right? So I had all that change, and I would just keep it in I have one too. I have a Y2K Tootsie Roll bank, but I would put it in a Tootsie Roll bank, and so I would have that. Also, my dad would always, people who drank pop, like people are they're avoiding pop to their soda. Don't get me started on the pop soda thing. But anyways, a lot of people are there's other alternatives. People are trying to stay away, not drinking as much Pepsi, Coke, Squirt, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, whatever, because of all the sugar, right, and all the high fructose corn syrup. Everybody's paranoid about that. Back in 1988, 89, nobody cared. Like my mom notoriously drank Tab and Diet Coke, but she still is addicted to Diet Coke. So I would drink the diet stuff at my mom's, but when I went to my dad's house, he mostly drank Miller High Life, but when he wasn't drinking beer, he would get like 4 12-packs every week of pop. And I can't, if you were to buy 4 12-packs of pop now, a week, that's like $25, if not more. That's like $40 to buy 4 12-packs of pop. Now here's the thing. The deposits are still 10 in Michigan, because this isn't everywhere. This is, so we're also, you probably have to be from the Michigan Midwest area for this. And some states have it, but not all of them. The deposit on the pop cans were 10 cents. Today they're still 10 cents, which is good for us if you're going to buy pop, right? But, back then, 10 cents was kind of a lot. It was worth a lot more than 10 cents today, right? So if the pop deposits, of course, if they followed inflation, Jesus, I mean, shit, it would cost you $100 with the deposits for 4 12-packs of pop. Back then, 4 12-packs of pop with the deposits was probably $9, $10, $12 maybe. My dad would buy that weekly. So when I go to my dad's house on the weekend, I just guzzle. A lot of cherry 7-Up. I remember when that came out, right around this time. Guzzled a lot of cherry 7-Up. But yeah, so I would say, Dad, can I take the pop cans back? Because I don't care. Because he didn't want to do it. He was like, take them back, because I don't like, just like me now, I don't like taking back pop cans. I'd rather just throw them in the trash. Even though they're worth money, I paid a deposit and, recycling. But anyways, so he would say, yeah, take the cans. And I would guzzle myself, at least a 12-pack of pop over the course of the weekend, watching Aliens and Return of the Jedi for the 7,000th time, right? On VHS that I taped off of Cinemax or Showtime. So I'd have another $1.20, sometimes more cans, sometimes $2 at the cans, coming home from my dad's house for the weekend. I get to my mom's, and my mom would buy a lot of 2 liters. I just remember that vividly because that trailer was a furnace in the summer, and it didn't have any air conditioning, and the heat would make those. She always had them in like a garbage bag in the front of the trailer in the kitchen, and all those Diet Coke 2-liter bottles, and they would swell up, and they would just go, pink, like just out of nowhere. I'd just be sitting there, and all of a sudden hear this, pink. Oh, it's those bottles. But anyways, the bottles would make a noise. So my mom always had a bunch of those. She guzzled a lot of Diet Coke, but obviously you only get 10 cents for a 2-liter bottle. It was a lot more profitable being at my dad's house because he would buy the cans. So regardless, after a week, I would probably have close to $8 or $9 in cash from I could take the bottles back to the, as my dad called them, the camel jockeys up there in the corner. Going on up to to get comic books. And so where I'm going with this is, it was a ritual, a production. I mean, it was a thing you had to think about, like, how am I going to get the money to buy these comics that I want to get every month? And like I said, with the DC directives, you can see here the little check boxes. Now, most of the check boxes where you check them if you bought the comic. For me, what I would do was I would check the box if that was the one, if I wanted to get it or not. So that way when I have it, I could just go through the checklist and go like, oh, I'm going to get Power Girl number 4, The Wanderers number 4, I'm going to get Cops number 2, Cops, Batman the Cult, book 2. I remember that. They had a bunch of little cards that they gave out for promotionals of that. I had the Batman the Cult. I remember I would glue them to my notebooks, and all the kids at school would be like, "What's that? What's that black Batman thing you got in there?" Oh, Batman the Cult. Like I said, I was in special ed a lot of classes because I was an idiot, I still am. But anyways, there was nobody in special ed. All the burnouts were not collecting comic books. I was actually a target for a lot of their, their, bullying. And they really didn't bully me that much because I was kind of in the same boat as they were. But they used to always just, they were more like razz me. It's like, oh, here comes Tim. He's got freaking comic books again. What are you, 12? No, I'm 15. 14. I'm only 2 years older than that. Anyways, but then they'd be like, hey, well, let me see that. I want to check that out. Oh, you gonna start collecting comics? Nah, I'm not collecting this faggy shit. That's how they were, you know what I mean? So, sorry, the days of high school in the 80s. But anyways, so what I'm saying is, there weren't a lot of people buying comic books back that time. And the only girl that I knew who vaguely knew about the X-Men comics was a girl, sister of another kid who went to school with us. And I remember I tried to date her once, and that went horribly wrong. And her biggest grievance with me was, all he does is sit around and talk about X-Men comics all day, right? So, and then she was a girl who would go to the Renaissance Fair, work at the Renaissance Fair. So there was like one or two of those people in my entire school, and they didn't really, they knew about the stuff, but they weren't really collecting comics. So it was predominantly a boys' club of a small minority of dudes collecting comics at the time. So, again, this stuff would come out. So what I was saying is, you could get $7 or $8, scrounge it up together, plus just random change around the house, and you could get that cash together. You'd roll it up in your sock, so you'd have a sock full of sweaty, coins, because it's June 7th. And you come up to that counter, you just throw it down. It's like Seinfeld, with Kramer. He throws all his change down to get the calzones. Oh, you make a mean calzone. It's kind of the same situation, except for mine smelled like my foot, my socks. So anyways, but like I said, and I wasn't going to collect every DC comic. I probably in a month would collect maybe 5, 6 DC comics, 7. So you're getting, that's even 10 is $7.50, but I would buy a couple of the $1.50 ones. So roughly, plus I'd get Marvel too. But what I'm just saying, I don't even think I got that many DC now that I think about it. But it was, you could do it. It was pretty feasible to do. And again, my existential crisis I was having, what I was thinking about originally, was this. Was it easier to like this stuff when you were a teenager because you were young? You were impressionable, your mind was still developing. There's a lot of things going on that while you like the stuff, you had less... my only real responsibility was just to make it to school, and maybe graduate. That was really my only responsibility anybody had of me, is don't get in trouble, don't cost your parents money, make it to school, and try to graduate. That was it. That was the only real expectation people had of me. Of course, sourcing the money to buy comics was a stress, was a responsibility that was self-imposed, obviously, on myself. But I really didn't have a lot of, there's nobody really, I didn't have to pay the rent. I didn't have to buy the pop. My dad bought the pop, my mom bought the pop, unless I bought, pop while I was out. The other thing I did, of course, in high school was I never ate lunch. My mom would give me $5 on Monday for lunches. I don't know why she didn't give me more, because a hot lunch at my high school, I think it was $1.25, but I got $1 to spend, so I guess I wasn't buying a hot lunch. But my mom would give me $5 on Monday or Sunday night. Well, here's your lunch money for the week. I never really ate lunch at school. I would just skip lunch, and I would just pocket the money. And of course, obviously, that money went into buying shit. action figures, which I was not trying not to let anybody know I was still buying, comic books, Warhammer miniatures in '87 and '88, when they were out, which was right at the same time. But it was just more money to add to the thing. Plus, my dad also would give me, he'd give me a bunch of change. He'd give me sometimes he'd give me like a $20, like I'm going home to my mom's on a Sunday, he would hand me a $20 bill as like an allowance. And he just assumed I would do whatever with it. Hey, here's $20, because he would also play the lottery a lot, and he'd always win like the 4 number thing, I think, which would get like $105 or $150 cash out. Wasn't a big thing, but he would win that a lot. Like I would swear every other week my dad won the cheapo lottery, and he would always give me a 20. So I come back Monday. Mom's gonna give me $5. I got about $7 in pop bottles and change, and some money. At the time, I mean, I could definitely buy any of the comic books that I wanted. So that was a thing. I mean, that was part of it. So now, with the responsibilities of being a dad at 50. And the divorced dad, but I mean a dad nonetheless. Well, then there's that. I mean, you got child support to contend with. I'm trying to make a living here, doing comic books, which obviously I love. So there's a work at part of it too. And you've got you're not as impressionable as you were. It's harder for me to go through and really, despite the quality of the comics, people, they're woke, which some of them are. They're not. The stories suck. The blah blah blah. All that stuff. You want to? I mean, literally, I'm just looking at pictures of comics, right? Obviously they look different, right? Just like comics that are coming out. Then look at comics here, like this Dead Man or this Power Girl, right? If you were to go back then and you were to look at this and see this, because you looked in the future, you'd be like, holy shit. What? What's with the color? How does this, what's going on? I mean, me also as a wannabe comic book artist, I'd be like, how in the hell did they do that? And there's just this big fancy, all that stuff, right? So, I know people like, like take a Power Girl, for example, there, right? Oh, well, she's, drawn better. Let's see, yeah, I mean, obviously she's more skimpy. I mean, well, look at She-Hulk. She's wearing a bathing suit. She's in a pool. I mean, she's showing as much, if not more, skin than Power Girl is. So I'm just saying is, all of the weird hang-ups that people have about modern comics as opposed to these comics then, I think it's all relative, really. Like I said, I read Inferno again, and it's just like, comic books are written so much better then. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Let's just put it that way. No, they weren't. I think people's memory of those comics, if you grew up at that time, was just like me. You were young, you were impressionable, you're a teenager. That stuff had more of an influence on your brain than, reading a comic book nowadays. So, I don't think, when I hear people talk about stuff today, and I hear about, all that, even my own personal biases when I go and I look through and stuff, I think there's a lot going on there that's hard to quantify to just one or two different things. I think my overall thing that I was talking about was the fact that we, comic books are more expensive today. Yes, that is an issue. And like I said, if you're going to be scraping up pop bottles and change to go buy comic books, it's not going to take you very far. You're going to need... you're going to need, 40, you're going to have to drink 40 pops to buy one $3.99 comic book. as opposed to before you only need to drink like 8 pops to get a comic book at 75 cents, or 10 pops to get a $1 comic book. A lot more pop drinking, and people don't drink as much pop today. At least I don't, and I don't, once in a while I see people buying like whole carts of Coke and stuff at the grocery store, and they obviously sell pop because they have a whole pop aisle. But I don't think people are guzzling the pop like they used to be. Even sugar alone, look at the price. Like I said, to buy 4 12-packs today would cost you $40. With the deposits, cost you $40. That's insane. Sorry. So what? So anyways, the end of this book, and this will give you all the different weeks. So we got June 14th, June 21st. Here's one thing. Checkmate, right? So wait a minute. Checkmate number 7. Wait, I'm curious about something. This is supposed to be number 1. Yeah, DC Comics number 1. Was this the one with... Because I remember vividly sitting at the trailer park in my bedroom, my friend from Ruther, and he was there with me, and we're reading comic books, and we were looking through the guide, and I said, "Oh, what's this Checkmate coming up? This looks really cool." That said number 7, so I don't see Checkmate there. I remember seeing Checkmate in one of these, though. Like when they first advertised it. Checkmate number 4 by... Oh, maybe it wasn't. Look at that, though. Look at right there. Batman, the Joker, and the Killing Joke. That was new at the time. Oh, know what it was? It was Manhunter number 1. Okay, that's what it was. Checkmate was already out. Then what I'm thinking about is Manhunter number 1. We had Justice League International number 15. The Wonder Woman of the the George Perez 1980. Well, it's 1988, so they're on issue 10. Hellblazers number 7. But one of the ones that's kind of really sticks in my head outside of that one, of course, is the one with Cosmic Odyssey. That Mike Mignola thing before Hellboy even. This Cosmic Odyssey thing I thought was so cool. Oh, and look at that. There's fire over there. No shoes on in her outfit. Sorry, anyways. Yeah, I remember this comic here with the guy. I said, "Oh, Jason's in a comic." That's not Jason. Hawk and Dove number 2, Suicide Squad number 18. Yeah, look, check this out. This is literally a walk down my high school memory lane. What was another one? It was a big one. Hawk and Dove. Where's the one with? Oh yes, there's the one with the Invasion, Secret Invasion, which was a Todd McFarlane comic book, by the way. He did I can't believe McFarlane did that many pages in this. It's crazy. It was like a double issue. Sorry. There's Mike Zeck. A little interview with Mike Zeck in there. So like I said, there's some cool stuff in these magazines. I don't know what that was. Anyways. Justice League International, or Justice League Europe. When Justice League Europe started, that was a big deal for me. That's got to be 89 by now. Yeah, February. That's 89. Because I remember my dad moved out of the trailer park way out in Addison Township, moved back into Rochester, downtown Rochester, and rented a street there in rented a house on Oak Street. And that was right about the time the Keaton Batman was coming out. And whenever I think of, for some reason I keep thinking of sitting on the toilet in that rented house and reading Justice League. I know, excuse the visuals there, but sitting on the toilet and reading Justice League International. What was another one that was big around that time? That's that Legion of Superheroes when that started. What was the one with, oh yeah, Arkham Asylum, the graphic novel. All that classic stuff that DC came out with, all that, that 80s, late 80s, beginning of the modern year, post Watchmen, I think Watchmen was actually still going on at the time. the 12-issue Watchmen. I know Dark Knight had already come out by now. But I don't know if anybody remembers the Batman, the first like computer-generated digital comic. As the world enters the 90s, so does Batman. The Caped Crusader is now depicted using the most sophisticated tool of modern technology, the computer. Batman Digital Justice, hardcover graphic novel, tells the tale of Batman in a world run by computers. The story itself was created on a computer using state-of-the-art computer graphics programs and technology. I mean, what I got sitting right here. The future looks to be hard place in Batman's Digital Justice as one of the last remaining human cops in Gotham City discovers that computers that regulate their lives have turned against humanity. Like I said, the PC wasn't common back then, if not at all. So just people talking about computers. What are these computers? Like I said, the only way for me to use a computer at this time in 1989 was, well, there was an Amiga down at the Channel 52, where I was taking the Channel 52 public access classes. But anyways, there was an Amiga in the Career Center at school, and then the rest of them were all like Apple IIe's, because, well, this is still the summer. No, this is 89. Shoot, no, this is, oh, no, I'm, right, right at this, I think, second semester, maybe it was the first semester of 10th grade, so it was before this actually came out. I was taking computer literacy with Mrs. McWhirter at my 10th grade at Rochester High School, and the class had all, it was weird, it was like, you had normal desks, and she would sit up there and she would talk, and then the back row was all the computers, the back desks, and they were all Apple IIe's or Apple II whatevers. And you would do like it was all book work, really. And then it's like, oh, you're going to go use the computer. So everybody get up and they'd go sit at the computer. Sometimes there wasn't enough computer for each student, so 2 people had to share a computer. And you had to do the assignment where you basically just had to like program a bunch of DOS. Not program, but just, well, we did some program. A lot of it was just like how to run an executable in DOS, stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't the age of computers like it is today. Building a better tomorrow. Captain of Industry. Sorry. Yeah, so anyways, I guess it was a long story about this DC Direct thing. But like I said, this was the way. It was when Lobo came back. Lobo's back. I don't know if you guys remember that. This is in the 9th. I'm in senior in high school now. Or what month was it? Yeah, it's November 91. No, I'm first semester at OCC Community College, which I didn't make it past much there until I went to school 10 years later. But anyways, yep, I remember that. Yeah, so let's say once 93 hits, though, I was pretty much out. I think the last thing I remember was getting, like, Catwoman #1, the Jim Balon Catwoman #1. And that would have been, what, in August of 93? I know that summer in 93 pretty vividly. I was 20. That's, I think, I might have picked that up. That was probably one of the last comics I picked up. And I was done with comic books pretty much then on out. As far as American comics, I don't think, all this stuff is wasted on me, because like even the death of Superman, I didn't give a shit about it. I wasn't one of those people standing in line to buy a bunch of that. I was done with American comics. It wasn't until, and there's 95, I think I started collecting, I didn't start collecting Marvel comics again until Heroes Reborn, which was, what, 97-ish? 96, 97? Remember they used to have, like, oh no, it might have been right before that. Remember they had those little headline things of the world's greatest comics they were putting on there in, like, the mid-late 90s? I started collecting them again, but never really got too hardcore. Then I really got into DC, and this is like when the DC Direct started to come out right around this time, where you get the magazine. Like I said, I go in a comics corner in the comic shop. Yeah, so I would say probably that was it. And I really wasn't getting these at this time. I was kind of, sort of buying. Actually, there's Death of Superman. That was okay. So that was still 93, January 93. I didn't buy it. It might even have been. I did buy the Catwoman because I like Catwoman. This might have been it. Right around here I think this might have been the last of these that I had. Was the Direct. So I didn't. I mean, if you stack them all up. Like I said, I must have had this one or this one. I don't think I had the first one. I probably had most of these. I remember the Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunter. That was like a big thing. I had it. It was okay. I wasn't a really big Green Arrow fan. My buddy, the Ruther friend, I remember him always talking about Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunter. He liked Green Arrow. He was a big Green Arrow fan. He was okay. So I more associate that comic specifically with him. I forgot what we were both. I know we're both still collecting. We did Justice League Europe. We did Justice League International. We did stuff like the Hawk and the Dove. I don't think I got I never bought the Arkham Asylum graphic novel. I know he did. He had it. Again, I don't think I collected a lot of DC at the time. Let's just go to this. Let's go when this was out. What else was out? Advanced Dungeons and Dragons #4. Oh, God, that was a terrible comic. I may or may not have collected detective comics at this time. I was more like I just pick up detective once in a while if I like the cover. Remember, this is I think this is '89. This is when the Keaton Batman was coming out. So everything was Batman crazy at this time. Everyone was Batman nuts. My friend, he collected New Gods. I didn't have New Guardians. Was I collecting New Guardians? I was collecting the Wanderers. I really like the Wanderers. I like them a lot. I was collecting Checkmate. I know he was collecting Suicide Squad. I believe I got the Spectre. I don't know if I collected the Firestorm. What else is out? I remember I had Haywire. I had Manhunter. He liked V for Vendetta. I think I got Wonder Woman. I always liked the Catwoman, so I got Catwoman. Oh, that was that. Actually, that was the 4-issue limited series. I did have that though, by the way. I would same thing with Batman too. I wouldn't get them all, but I would get them here and there. I don't think I ever bought the Dragonlance comics. Then Legion of Super. We both like Legion of Superheroes. We both like Mr. Miracle. Let's see what else we got here. He collected Animal Man. I remember buying the game Gamma Marauders. I never collected the comic. Doom Patrol again. Justice League Europe #1. There it is. We were both into that pretty heavily. I still collect. I had New Mutant or Teen Titans. I think he did too. I know, like Justice League, New Teen Titans, Wanderers. Those are like my favorites at the time. He was an avid reader, so he liked Alan Moore, and he was big on Swamp Thing. I don't think Alan Moore wrote. I don't think he was doing it at the time, but he really likes Swamp Thing. I wasn't really big on. I liked the movie, but I really wasn't into. He also liked Sandman. I hated Sandman. I didn't like the gothy stuff. I didn't like the alternative comic books, as I used to call them. I like the more mainstream stuff. Yeah. But who's that? What's his face? What's his face? I can't remember. Schaffenberger. But yeah. So I'm just curious to see what was after that with this one here. D&D Batman, they're all pretty much the same cops. So yeah, again, like I said, and they start putting the prices in. Yeah, so you knew, like I said, they're still common. Justice League International is still 75 cents. You know, only need to drink 8 pops to get that one. Like I said, Haywire. I didn't collect Haywire for very long. I don't even think I collected it. I think I might have collected like the first 10 issues of Haywire. I didn't really get it. I more like that because of the art and just the robots. I really didn't, and I like the girl too. I didn't really get the comic. You know, like Justice Leagues were pretty straightforward. I really like Justice League International just because of the comedy. And I thought that was really cool. You know, New Mutants or New Teen Titans pretty straightforward. The Wanderers pretty straightforward. Not the Wanderers, the Outsiders. Was there really coming out this time? Sorry, I don't know why my voice gets so high when I. Whenever I get into something, my voice goes really high. It sounds really strange. I don't like that. I hate hearing it. Really? I'm not an appealing person to listen to. I'm sorry, on video. I'm not charismatic and cool. I have a cool voice and probably pretty abrasive, most likely. Let's just go back to this. I know I was collecting Outside. It was Batman and the Outsiders. Then it was just Outsiders. But I don't see a listing for it. You know, just because I'm curious what number they were on at the time. I did get some Wanderers though, but that wasn't the comic I was thinking of. Shoot. I have to look that up. But yeah, the Wanderers, I'm sorry, the Outsiders was. I like the Outsiders. Thought they were cool. Also, one thing I picked up at this time was I don't have it on this drive, but is the DC Mayfair games, the DC role playing. Remember, we were pretty avidly playing Marvel superheroes, the role playing game from TSR, but Mayfair Games had the DC game. And we didn't play much of it, and they also started coming with those modules and stuff. I really liked that game at first, but we didn't really stick with it. I think we just didn't like it as much as we liked the other one. And I remember in '89 too, they had a Batman supplement book specifically because the Batman craze came out for that. But those are going on at the time, and again, those modules and those DC Who's. You know, oh, they're on the, okay, that was a little earlier. So the DC Who's, I think they were doing the updates in '88 and '89. I didn't see any listings for them, but the main bulk line of that was already out, had already been released. It's interesting, this is 1988 though. I could have swore this was like late '87 when these started coming out, but I guess not. I mean, this was when we're in high school. We're reading the. We were also going back and looking for the Superpowers figures at the time, because time travel. And I think I told my story about me and the run-in with Mike Golden, the owner of Time Travelers, and selling the figures. That whole story. But we were also avidly collecting the Superpowers figures because they weren't that old. I mean, you could still find them pretty easily, and. What's his face? Tim Zahn, an inker at the time. We saw him at one of the conventions, I think at the Motor City Comic Con at the Dearborn Civic Center, back when it was in Dearborn, when it wasn't that big. He took some of the Superpowers and he modified them and made customs. And he had a Checkmate, and I thought that was so cool, because I really like Checkmate, just like the way it looked. I was like, oh, I gotta make one of those. And then me and that same friend, we started getting into customizing our action figures. And tried to make. I think he made a Deadshot out of a Lex Luthor. I made a Venom out of a Superman. I tried to make Metamorpho, but the paint I used was really crappy. I was using a Toy Biz Lex Luthor head because he had like this goofy smile, like a weird bald head, and I was using that for Metamorpho because I was reading, Justice League Europe at the time, and I tried to make a Metamorpho, and he didn't come out that great. Also, tried to make a Riddler, because they didn't have a Riddler figure, and I think the Riddler one came out pretty good. We tried to make a few of them, but we realized how hard it was to make those. But a good buck to use was Flash, because he didn't have much of a costume. So you just sanded off the things on his little his little wings on his helmet, and it was pretty much just a blank figure at that point. Speaking of which, I saw they've come out with some male and female blank figures for 1/12 scale through the hack sign thing or whatever. They're not coming out till next year. I saw those, like, oh, that would be kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm going to get into making custom figures, but like I said, that was the thing we tried to do at the time, and I still think it's funny how I told the story before, how that friend of mine, he was making fun of me because I repainted my Hobgoblin Secret Wars figures, because I wanted the Goblin Glider to be gray, how McFarlane had it gray in his comic of the Amazing Spider-Man, and I took paint and ink and Sharpies and stuff, and I basically McFarlaneized. I took, made all the line mileage of McFarlane like style on it, and he was making fun of me for it's like, why would you shade a 3D object? It's like, that's so stupid. Aren't they naturally already shaded? I told this story before. If he's watching, of course he knows the story. And but I just find that funny, because that's how all the ink washes and all the stuff that's out now, and all the paint apps that like McFarlane started doing on the McFarlane figures, he was doing the same thing I had the idea for back then, and I was the dumb one. So take that for what it is. Anyways, we're coming to an hour here. So yeah, these DC Directs again. They don't. I mean, they do this now. I think DC has a version of this as well. That's always on the counters at the comic shops. I think. I'm not 100% certain. I would imagine they did. They used to have these as part of the DC, the Direct, the Diamond Comics distributors. But when Diamond dropped DC, and I think they dropped Marvel now, they're just doing them direct, just like this, direct through themselves. So, which is fine. I really like these. I think these are cool, and these are essentially the same thing as those. So, but they're from Marvel. Like I said, right now I'm not outside of. I was thinking about getting Wonder Woman and Catwoman, but I don't know if I'm gonna subscribe to those. Maybe not. The artists seem to be all over the place with those comics. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Yeah. So maybe I like Fire and Ice, and that Fire and Ice comic is terrible. It is god awful. And the art's horrendous. So it totally it's two of my favorite DC characters because of Justice League International, and I swear they butchered that comic. I was really ready to jump on that one, and it's like, oh, I don't like this at all. I mean, the story sucks, but I mean, who cares about the story? I just wanted to see some good, art with, those two, especially Fire, But no, the art's terrible. So, maybe in the future, I don't know. Like I said, I also, these things are expensive, although getting a subscription actually does save you some money, but, you know what I'm getting. I'm still waiting on Spider-Woman number whatever I got coming, 5. That actually came out Wednesday. I still don't have my copy yet, so it's weird getting the subscription. You're saving money, but you can't read it. It's not like they're shipping it and you're getting it the day of and it drops. It's like it might be in the mailbox now. I'll go out on Saturday, so maybe I'll go look and see. But and I'll do my video on those once I get the sheet. I like to do them together. Or maybe I'll do them separately. I don't know. Maybe I'll do them separately. It's probably not going to be a long video. I'm just going to review the comic, really. I think I'll get into reviewing the comics now that I'm getting them. I don't know. I'm not going to go out this week. Oh, it's the weekend already now, but I'm not going out, so no weekend hauls this weekend. I'm going out of town, to family for Easter, and my son's going with me. So next week, I don't think I'll be in. I might have to stop by the comic shop and just see what's in my box before we go, or maybe on the way back. I could always go over to Comics Corner, which was right around the block from my mom's while I'm down there, and stop into Comics Corner. Relive the 90s. Yeah, other than that, I think that's all I wanted to say about this. So, like I said, I'm interested. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you like this stuff. Tell me if you like, help me out there, so grow my subscribers. But my question is, did you get these when you were younger? Were you in high school? Were you around the same age as me? And were you getting these back then? Is that how you were kind of seeing what was coming out for DC Comics at the time? Or do you get these now? Or do you get the DC one now? Just, what are your thoughts on this? Put them in the comments, and like I said, I'd love to talk about stuff. But in the meantime, I will let you go, and I'm going to go make myself some dinner. Hamburgers. Alright, I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.